and people aren't as receptive to the idea of public money for a stadium, especially for a stadium that's not that bad.
All right, back with our next guest, Jon Greenberg, founding editor, senior columnist at The Athletic, plugged into the Chicago sports scene. And woo, Jon, great to have you on. I mean, I don't know if you expected to be on our show during this time of year, being that the White Sox are maybe the worst team ever, and the Cubs certainly didn't make fans excited this season. But here we are. Thanks for coming on. And first off, are the White Sox about to get sold and turn this franchise around?
Well, I find it interesting that AJ Brzezinski's not here. Maybe he's rallying, potential investors. I heard he's in Italy. Maybe he's meeting with Mike Piazza, and he's
got
buying
short arms, John. He's got short arms. He's not letting. He needs other people to pay for it, but he'll get behind it and cheer him.
He's got a big Rolodex though, like he says. Maybe he's
Paul Konerko. That's his buddy. He's got a Hawk Harrelson. You say he had a 6,000 square foot house in Scottsdale, or a 10,000 square foot house in Scottsdale. So maybe PK's buying it. Let AJ run it, and then that's great for the media because we could talk to AJ every day.
That would be awesome. Oh my gosh, if AJ owned a team, that would be next level. It would change the way we look at ownership in sports. I will go that far. But do you think this is going to happen? And what was your reaction when you first found out about this news? Obviously, Jerry's getting up there in age, and I'm sure there are a million components behind the scenes going on here, including the fact that I think they've tried to poke the city to get money for yet another new ballpark, and they've given him the Heisman so far.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the big deal. Jerry, for the last year, has been working on this stadium idea, the idea of getting money, and it's money from the state, which they got to build Guaranteed Rate Field, originally called Comiskey Park 2, back in the late 80s, early 90s, opened in 91. So that's been Jerry's big push. And it's not working because it's a different world than it was in like 1989, and people aren't as receptive to the idea of public money for a stadium, especially for a stadium that's not that bad. I mean, it could be better, but it's not awful. It's not crumbling. It's not the Coliseum. So that hasn't worked. All right. The team went from 101 losses, which Jerry said was the worst year ever for him, to 121 losses, which is the worst year ever, since the Cleveland Spiders. So that's not going great. The team is not making money. I've heard they're losing money, although it's, tough to get the actual financials. And the fact that, their RSN deal ended this year, and Jerry's a partner with the Blackhawks in a new RSN that's having, its own issues getting carriage in the city. So to me, this seems like the perfect time for him to get out. He's always said the team will sell when he passes away. Jerry's 88 years old. I think he's probably starting to look at it a little bit and saying, well, why don't I just help get this sold to the right people now? And here we are with Britt's story. And when Britt told me she was working on it, I was, surprised, but not shocked, because it does make sense.
Now, I'm very interested in how this story has played out, because very recently I read another Britney story titled from September 19th, titled "An Owner Who Thinks He Knows Everything Led to the White Sox to a Historic Disaster." And there was a very interesting quote that Jerry Reinsdorf had in this. I'll give it to you right now. Friends of mine have asked, why don't you just sell? Why don't you get out? Reinsdorf said last year, my answer has always been, I like what I'm doing, as bad as it is, and what else would I do? I'm a boring guy, and I want to make it better before I go. This was less than a month ago. Okay, so
yeah. That quote's from last year. Okay, so
it's from last year. So
yeah. He's repeated it, I guess, but he said it last year.
So has there been any specific things that have happened recently that have maybe locked in this isn't going to happen? Possibly, like, has he gotten more news about whether or not he's going to get a stadium? Has the RSN thing been gotten worse, or he's less likely to make anything happen? Anything big that we don't know about, possibly, that might have changed his mind in a big way this fast?
Yeah, not in the past month, but in the past year, absolutely. And, I was talking to someone who's kind of affiliated with the ownership world in sports in Chicago, and they said they heard rumblings that Jerry was looking to get out when he went to Springfield in February. That's downstate Illinois, where the state capital is, to talk to legislators and kind of take the temperature about, state money for a new stadium. And it failed. And people said that's when, maybe they got maybe a change in tenor from Jerry, or there was just rumors going around the, the wealthier people, wealthier than us, about how Jerry is feeling. I've heard there's been some poking around about people, Jerry and his family, to to people that are current investors with the team, seeing if they wanted to level up. So I do think everything you've talked about is kind of come to a head. The team being terrible, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. He's not getting another title like they thought they were during the Rick Hahn rebuild that he could really enjoy before his ownership's done. So I think it's kind of makes logical sense for him to kind of get out. Last year when he fired Kenny Williams, to me, that was a shocker because Kenny had been his guy for, 2 decades. And to let go of Kenny, it kind of made me think, well, who's Jerry, watching games with now? Who does he want to engage with in baseball besides, obviously Tony La Russa? So that's kind of where I think the change has come a little bit.
How many levels of uncertainty does Dave Stewart bring to this equation? If his group that he has formed wants to look into buying the White Sox, because it doesn't just become then, if I'm not mistaken, it doesn't just become, oh, well, he's going to own the team in Chicago because he's been connected with the Nashville group. Is there a chance that with him coming in here that we start talking about possibly the White Sox moving to Nashville?
Yeah, because that came up last year because Jerry was spotted leaving the mayor's office. And now I would assume that someone in Jerry's orbit tipped off a reporter that he was leaving the Nashville mayor's office. Because I don't think people in Nashville just look around. They're not looking for country singers and Jerry Reinsdorf spottings, right? So I think that was probably the setup there. But I do think this gives more more realistic option and more realistic leverage if Dave Stewart and his group were the primary owners or minority owners of the team, that, they could move to Nashville because they actually have the connections and they have the interest where Jerry really wouldn't, So I do think that gives him more leverage. I also think it'd be foolish to say just because Dave Stewart, wants to buy the team that he's automatically moving them to Nashville or somewhere else. Because I think Chicago is still, the third largest market, even though they share it with the Cubs and the Cubs have, dominance in the market. They still have a great fan base. Everything's set up here. It would make more sense for them to stay. But with this new ballpark they're trying to build, and the new ballpark they're trying to build, I should add, it's a little farther north than where they are now. It's in the South Loop, and it's in an area that developers are trying to make like a new neighborhood. It's along the river. I've stopped there and seen like they had their groundskeeper build a park there so they could show investors what it would look like. And they had the usual White Sox cast of characters like Harold Baines and Ozzie Guillen, and then give kind of like a presentation, and talk about what a ballpark would look like in this area. So the question has always been who pays for it. Jerry said, you pay for it. And now maybe, in the States, like, no. So we'll see if they can find someone to pay for this ballpark, no matter who owns the team.
Well, and that's the thing, John. I think that's the big business battle that goes on that at least, half the stewards in our sport are most obsessed with. You have some that are like, I want to win games. Let's have a time. We're going to make money anyway. And then you have half going, if you're getting a new ballpark, you need to make the city pay for a good chunk of it. Otherwise, when I've got to go get my renovation or my new ballpark, they're going to have leverage against me, right? We know that game goes on across the sport, and that when you have John Fisher actually departing from Oakland, the rest of the cheap, annoying ones go crazy because they've got leverage to say, hey, look, this is real. I know I'm saying this, but this is real. So what do you think is going to happen there? Because I'm with you. I've been to that ballpark many times. Like, it's a nice ballpark itself. Is it in the best location? No, obviously. And the way that owners are looking at baseball nowadays is this is a real estate deal. What can I own all around it? And that place, I don't know what the deal is there, but there's nothing around there. So it doesn't look like it's going to suddenly turn into this lucrative neighborhood. So how much do you think this has to do with the business of the sport? Because that even goes into who owns the team next. Because I think for White Sox fans, like, a lot of what we're getting into is nitty gritty. They just want to know, are we going to have an owner that's going to be more like Steve Cohen and the Dodgers owners, right? Name the good ones, like how Peter Seidler was with the Padres, whatever. Yeah, or am I getting the next Polad? Am I getting the next Fisher, the next Nutting? Like, it's very obvious. Our sport's the one where people know who the owners are for good and bad reasons.
Yeah, and Jerry, most of all, because he was so active in the labor, the strike in '94 that basically crippled his own franchise, which was looking fantastic back then. So yeah, I would love to see like a Mark Cuban type, right, in Chicago. Like, Cuban was rumored to buy the Cubs. He had interest in the Cubs when they were sold, and supposedly Jerry helped put the kibosh on that because he didn't like dealing with Cuban from the NBA. So It would be interesting. I don't know too much about this Dave Stewart group because I haven't paid too much attention in the Nashville expansion. So I don't know what kind of owners they would be. I will say I talked to someone in Chicago who has enough money to seriously consider buying the White Sox and is interested. And he once told me he didn't think they needed a new ballpark. He said that he really thought they just needed to fix up the area around it. It's surrounded by parking lots, which is kind of an old school way to do it instead of a neighborhood. So, you redevelop some of that area. There actually is decent stuff in that area. Next time you come in, I'll take you on a tour of the South Side in Bridgeport because there's actually some really good restaurants. There's a great store called Grandstand down the street on 35th, 2-second walk from the stadium. It's just the White Sox have never done a good job of integrating themselves into the neighborhood, into the fabric of that community, and trying to make it better. And that's kind of the Jerry Reinsdorf ownership in a nutshell to me, because I feel like he had these opportunities to do dynamic things and he just doesn't have it in him. It goes back to the creation of that ballpark in general. We had a great Ken Rosenthal wrote a very good obituary on Larry Lucchino when he passed away. And the lead of it was him telling Ken that when they build their new stadium in Baltimore, it was going to be much, much better than the White Sox because they did a terrible job, building New Comiskey Park. And sure enough, Camden Yards became what every other ballpark wanted to be. So I think missed opportunities is a hidden kind of part of Jerry's legacy here.
Looking for recipes to bring the autumn feels? Hello, have you tried HelloFresh yet? America's #1 meal kit gives you over 50 recipes to choose from. Each week, they pre-portion the ingredients and then they ship them right to your doorstep.
Picky eaters like Scott or people looking to fit a specific lifestyle have met their match. HelloFresh features preferences like fit and wholesome, quick and easy, or vegetarian.
HelloFresh helps me eat healthier and maintain my presence as a popular chef at home with my kids. I'm bringing variety to the dinner table.
Just stop with the endless recipe searching, or you're spending a whole bunch of money on a big jar of spices just for a pinch. That's all you need. You can also get step-by-step recipe cards, making cooking simpler by using HelloFresh.
Get 10 free meals at HelloFresh.com/freeFT. Applied across 7 boxes, new subscribers only, varies by plan. That's 10 free HelloFresh meals just by going to HelloFresh.com/freeFT.
Yeah, you're right. I think it was Travis Sawchik who's been on our show who wrote a great article about how the White Sox ballpark was just built so poorly in so many ways. And you do, right? You do have to look at, who was behind all of that, because there are humans that made decisions, right? Yeah. Oh my gosh, look at what the White Sox have done within that park. And again, structurally it's sound, it's fine, but Camden Yards is a freaking gem. It still is, and it's been like that for decades. So it's a good call. I did have one other question for you, John, before you jump, and you might not have necessarily the answer, but I just was curious. When we were reading through this, it looks like Jerry is the majority owner, of course, but he only owns 19% of the team. When I heard that, I was like, that sounds insanely low based on how at least some of the other teams I know are constructed with their ownership percentages. So do you know anything about that? I mean, obviously there must be a ton of other owners, and for him to be majority, obviously nobody's above 20.
Yeah, I don't know. And actually, I don't know if he's actually the majority right now. I think at first he was the controlling partner, right? So he's one of those guys that didn't put a lot of his own money in, but got the group together and he took control and they let him take, kind of control of it. It was him and a guy named Eddie Einhorn back in 1981. They were the guys in charge. I feel like someone else might have been the majority there. I have it written down somewhere. But here's the thing. Jerry had said before in an interview that no one knows his true percentage. Now, was he bluffing and trying to be a little coy, or is that true? So I think he probably owns more than 19%. That's what Forbes has estimated. They're not always correct. I do know this for a fact. In 2021, his 2 sons, Michael, who runs the Bulls as the COO, which, Jerry's group, a different Jerry group owns that, the Bulls, and his other son, Jonathan, started buying up minority shares of partners that have been around. And these guys have been around since 1981, and women. And they started buying up people that wanted to leave, the people that were really old and wanted to get their estates settled. And they were offering a very low valuation, according to a friend of mine whose dad is a minority owner. And so some people said, no way, I'm not doing this. And some people said, yeah, you know what? We need the cash, whatever. We're still making a profit. So the Reinsdorf family definitely owns more than that 19%. I'll say that. So either way, when this thing is sold, they'll be doing pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I wasn't worried about that. I know they definitely kept their money tight, as many of these owners do. And also that plays to what you're saying. You don't build up the area. It costs money to build up the area. You're going to make it back if you believe in
Yeah.
it, but not everyone's just going to give you free passes for everything. I mean, newsflash, if you've got a big restaurant, the city's not supporting it for you like they support the ballpark, even if it draws people in. So, I mean, that's the beauty of our sport and how it works, the good and the bad. This is fascinating. Obviously, there's going to be more to it. So thanks for hopping on to give us some insight. People wanted it. And we'll catch you, I'm sure, down the road, hopefully to celebrate a sale.
Yeah. Either when we'll talk about either AJ getting the ownership or maybe the manager job or the GM job, something. Get rid of him for you guys. I know you guys.
Hey, that's fine. You know we're going to be quizzing him as soon as he's back next week. We're quizzing him. We're doing the interview.
Can't even have days off.
No.
AJ can't even have days
As
off.
soon as you go, the team's for sale. I love that. That's baseball. You leave for 5 seconds and things happen. So
100%.
thank you, John. Appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.